Hello, and welcome to my presentation, Employee Engagement, Voices from the Front Line. In this presentation, I talk about employee engagement first with the HR director at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, where I work, and then with two fellow coworkers. I feel that it was a good intermix between someone who works in HR and those that don't, but there was a lot of overlap, and it was really interesting to talk through the idea of employee engagement with people at different levels of the organization and to see how they not only they overlap but also how they diverge. I really thought that the interviews were enlightening, and I hope you do too. Thank you very much. Thank you. So first, if you could let me explain just real quick what this class is for. Um, as part of my transfer to Concordia, Wisconsin, I have to do a seminar class that gets me up to speed on some of the topics that we didn't get in my other program. Meet their accreditation requirements for the new program I'm transferring into. And some of the topics that we're going to be covering are human resource development, change management, Six Sigma and Lean System kind of stuff. I gotten some HR stuff in my other degree, but it was more human resource side, not human development side. And we have to interview some people at work about about like employee engagement and development.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you could just say your name and your title and where you have that role.
Yes. So my name is Amber Appleton, and I'm the Director of Human Resources for the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. And I'm sorry, you wanted me to say what else? What I have in that role?
Well, that's one of the questions, but I
Okay.
just wanted you to introduce yourself to begin with. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because you do hold that role in relation to human resource, and obviously human resource versus the development side versus resource side is a little bit different. Resource side is often more like benefits and timesheets and following the laws in relation to employment law, that kind of stuff. Where development's more growing people within an organization, training, that kind of stuff. So how do you define employee engagement in a general sense?
Yeah, sure. I guess I do want to comment on what you just said. I think in a larger organization, you'll find that what you said is correct, where there's more of like the admin, human resource folks, and then there's more of like the training, development, organizational strategy folks. In our organization, it's just me all wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
And you'll find, the smaller it is, the more common that is.
Yeah.
In terms of employee engagement, there's a couple things, that I look for when I'm looking at employee engagement. And, a lot of it is like the analytical things you can track, like attendance and performance in their PP&Rs or performance reviews. Has that been declining? But then some of the things you don't measure as easily is, are they interested in growing? Do they come to you and ask for opportunities or explore any growth opportunities within their role? Or do they ever say, sorry, my garage door just opened, I think Nick's home, so I'm going to shut the door. Sorry.
All right, no worries.
The dogs will start barking and then we won't be able to hear anything.
In the world of Zoom, I think we all just have to get used to these kind of
right
things.
I know. You might get a cat butt or two in this recording too. Sorry about that. So I noticed that some of our folks that are super engaged at OCOM are the ones that are emailing asking, hey, I saw this training and it impacts my work life this way and my personal life this way. Is there a way that we can swing it? Or, hey, I noticed Devin, for example, seems a little overwhelmed. Is there anything I can help with in his department? Some things like that, I guess. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, totally. Actually, I was going to send you an email about a Title IX training I saw for Oregon specific. You might have seen.
I saw that, the online one only.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to sign you and I up for the online. Sorry, tangent, but you and I only for the Oregon part, and then Steph for the coordinator training.
Because it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Well, got a little bit of work done on this call. That's
Mhm.
great. Okay.
Perfect.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think that sounds right. And for me, I always look at engagement as like trying to kind of grow your role within the organization,
Mhm.
um, or grow, not only grow your role, but also move up within an organization.
Mhm.
And you know, obviously, it's more than that. It's more than just personal growth, with like from like one step to the other. It's also growth within your current
Yep.
role,
Yep.
right? And so it's um, more nuanced, as
Mhm.
I might say. So,
Yep.
yes, I think that answered the question. Let's see. Next question. Do you believe employee engagement is high at OCOM? Why or why not?
Whew, I think it depends on the constituents. So I think um, faculty engagement is not as high as maybe I would say staff. And then I also think this COVID thing has kind of thrown a whole wrench in all of that. But I would say our faculty engagement is low, and for various reasons. But
Lower than, you mean staff is higher than faculty?
I would say staff engagement, from my perspective, is higher than faculty. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I also do think, though, now that we've all been working remotely the last month, um, I would say I would not be shocked if some of our staff engagement has dropped as well. This is a challenging work environment right now, so wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, but one could say that this new environment is its own development, right? Because
Absolutely.
one of the top chapters I had to read this last week, or for this particular week,
Mhm.
was hands-on training, or in job training, right? And where the environment itself becomes is not only a work environment but a learning environment, right? And all of us have had to learn how to do. Oh, there's a
Yep.
kitty.
There's the kitty.
There's the kitty.
Right.
We've all had to learn how to function in a
Uh-huh.
world of physical distancing, right? And so, even though it's not a high engagement, it really is, because it's forcing us to, right? Every day, really. Just not planned. It's just,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
yeah. I think that makes sense. I mean, I would agree with that. Having been at OCOM for 9 years, I I've gotten to the role I am in because I think I was engaged and grew my role, and I wanted to do more. Um, but we were so small that it took me I think making the effort. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a planned, hey, what do you want to do, and how can
Yeah.
we make you grow? It was more like I just made myself I took on more and just made myself more indispensable, so
Yeah.
that when a role came up, they thought of me.
Yep.
Um, and I think in small organizations, I would assume that's probably more true as well.
Yep. I
Yeah,
would agree with that. Yeah.
maybe less planned out, just more the way it comes
Yep.
together because of the employee and the situation.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's correct.
I just got
In
lucky.
my experience, anyways,
Right,
because I've worked for both bigger and OCOM is about the smallest I've ever worked. So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, me too. Okay, what role do organizational leaders play in increasing employee engagement at OCOM?
I think leadership plays a huge role in impacting employee engagement for the good or bad. And I think it all has to do with how engaged our leaders are, for example, and how much buy-in they have in their role in terms of their ability to impact and influence and grow and develop their employees. If
Yeah,
they're burnt out, or that isn't something they value, then that has a huge impact on everyone that reports underneath them.
yeah,
um, but on the flip side too, if they feel empowered and engaged, and they're um, excited to be in their role, then I also see that trickle down. For example, one of our VPs that is kind of the one that does everything, right? She's always going to say the yes. Her folks seem to be really engaged underneath her, because she has that energy and that drive, and her folks can see her, and see that she works with them to develop and get experience. And yeah, we don't have, stepping stones in our positions, but they see that, like Candace in the library, for example, sorry, I shouldn't use names, but in the library, that person is really engaged and can go out and find a grant, and Beth is there to support her. And then some of our other VPs are perhaps less engaged or less present on campus, and you can see that also impact in a negative way.
You also might have somebody who's barely hanging on, and so
Mhm.
you know what I'm talking about.
Or that individual who's so overwhelmed and barely hanging on that, yes, that panic and that overwhelm also trickles down, and you can see it.
Yeah, a
Mhm.
little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, again, is circumstantial as well to an extent. Not completely, of course, but there is some, just because we're so small and everyone's doing so
Yeah.
much kind of thing. And some people are super women and some people are not,
Exactly.
The one you were saying before is, I think, unique in certain respects.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, it's
I do think that, like in our organization, the president is the top.
right.
So I do think a lot of the tone and a lot of the organizational culture around employee engagement and development is set with her. And so, or should be and is set with her. So it's, that role also has, depending on how engaged in that
Yeah.
that culture that person is and how much of a value it is, can also make a huge
Oh,
impact.
definitely. And I've seen that, I've had several presidents I've worked with now at
Yeah.
OCOM, and I've seen the difference. I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay, almost done. Does you as just not in HR, but just as an employee, in general?
Is that you or me? Because I can't see my email.
That
Okay.
is me. Yeah.
Okay. No worries.
Sorry, one sec. So how does your engagement as an employee fluctuate within the organization?
How does mine?
Yeah, as in thinking
As an
more
employee?
employee.
Yeah. A big piece for me was my supervisor. Having a supervisor that wasn't as, that was kind of just a placeholder, or maybe was overwhelmed in their role, was really demotivating for me. And having someone who is really intense, but she's engaged and she's ready to make a difference and move OCOM forward in a lot of ways. And she empowers me to do my job more than the previous supervisor. That has been a huge change in my engagement. And then so I would say the biggest shift for me was having a supervisor that was interested in developing me and developing others on my team or our team, and moving the college forward.
Yeah. I mean, so what you're saying is that it really depended on the person at the top, because the president's your direct supervisor.
Yep.
So that it was more of the leaderships in that has allowed you to kind of increase your engagement as an employee in general.
I would say yes. The saying is that people don't leave a job, they leave a supervisor. And I found that, or a manager, and I found that super true. And I'm not saying, the person that was in that role before was awful, but the person that was in that role before was not interested in developing any of her team, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that makes it hard. I was super engaged when I first started, but then, after about 7 or 8 months of no interaction, no interest in my role, growing HR, etc. Yeah, it's super. I mean, it makes engagement really hard. So yeah, to have someone, have a supervisor that actually does want to do those things and does want to surround herself with the best employees she can is hugely motivating and engaging, at least for me.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree. You know, and it's amazing how much direct leadership has to do impacts the engagement of those underneath them. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
sure does.
at a because you can have the most go-getting, you know, lower level employee, but if they don't have a supervisor who encourages it, you know, provides opportunity for it, it's not going to go anywhere, right? Because most organizations are hierarchical, and so it doesn't move up. I mean, if you had a more flat organization where that person could like skip over, but most organizations are like this, right? And so it's amazing how impactful that is, really, as a supervisor.
Agreed. And for a time, people will push through because they'll find other things that are motivating. Maybe there's a new project they're working on this week, and that's, you know, engaging. But after a while, without that, most folks, I don't want to say everyone, but after a while, after not having that engagement and that growth and that development support, yeah, that's, folks are going to look for something else.
So the person who used to have the old dean role, and not saying names, I after a while had to just kind of lightly and politically go around and like offer my help elsewhere. I mean, she allowed me to do it, at least. I mean, she taught me, but it was me having to like do my own development by going outside of the hierarchy of the department I was in to kind of be able to grow the role that I had. And so, I mean, I've seen firsthand how that can be detrimental. I just got lucky that I was able to do that, I think.
Yeah, and you know, I think also your personality, you're definitely more of a extrovert, but and comfortable advocating for yourself. But there's a lot of employees who are not, and they would not be comfortable doing that. So instead, they'll be miserable and then leave.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't mean they're not good at their job or couldn't be better at another job. It's just they don't know how to advocate for themselves. All right. Well, those are my questions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be interviewing probably either Nick or Jessica or both with asking the same questions. Just FYI, and putting it together on an iMovie and, you know, submitting it as part of my presentation. So
very cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your help. I know we're all busy. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And I will talk to you soon, I am sure. And let me know about that training. I was going to ask about it anyways because I thought, you know, you and I should do it. So develop. Yay.
I know. At $100 a pop, you and I will probably be the only ones that does it, along with Stephanie and the separate training. But yeah.
And then okay, we're recording. All right, so I appreciate you both helping me. I don't think this will take too long, probably like 20 minutes most. Depends how talkative you are. So just a quick little brief explanation of why I've asked for your help. As you both are aware, I have to take this class that's part of my transfer to Concordia, Wisconsin from Concordia, Portland. And to make sure, and a lot of the class has to do with human resource development, change management, employee engagement, that kind of stuff. Excuse me. And we're in a section now that is about, in general, employee engagement, like at an organizational level. So I'll be asking you a few questions about that. All right?
Sounds good.
All right. So first, just introduce yourself real quick and tell me where you work and your title.
Work at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. My title is the Assistant Registrar and Academic Services Coordinator. They added services, so
did they? Okay,
they did. Yeah,
Okay.
I got an S in my acronym now.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Okay, yes. All right. We have fun with titles there. Okay. And then Jessica.
Yeah, my name is Jessica. I also work at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, and my title is also stupid long. I'm the Disability Services and Tutoring Programs Coordinator.
That is also really long. God, yeah. When I was first there, I also had a really long title. Anyways, that's not the point. Okay, so first question, and whoever wants to answer it first. In general, how would, when you hear the words employee engagement, would you define
I
We both didn't go.
you first, Jessica.
I mean, I think a lot of employee engagement has to do with kind of like pride in the institution, and like if you like you're feeling like involved, like you have a vested interest in what's going on. Like I think of like the opposite of employee engagement as someone who's just kind of, not, doesn't have a lot of like pride or engagement in like their job and the school as a whole, and just isn't very like engaged in the community, or just maybe clocks in clocks out, doesn't really care, kind of takes it as like a joke, or is just unhappy. And so I don't know, that's what first comes to my mind.
Yeah, there's no wrong answers, by the way. So, okay, great, thanks. Nick?
I mean, I've got sort of a split view of that. Working at OCOM, it's much closer to what Jessica says. It's very much trying to get everyone involved, people to kind of care about their coworkers and about the work that they're doing. Previous places I worked, if anyone said employee engagement, I would cringe. It was almost always used as like a lazy Band-Aid. If there were actual concerns or issues at the workplace, then we would hear like, oh, well, we just need to up employee engagement. It's like, okay, well, that of course means a pizza party with the cheapest Domino's pizza they could find, where you have to stay 30 minutes late, it's mandatory, and you don't get paid for it. It's like, great, all right, perfect.
Oh, wow. So it's a puff, kind of like
it's
word that doesn't mean a lot sometimes.
Yeah. When I say Band-Aid, I mean, someone broke their arm and it's like, well, here's a Band-Aid. Like,
yeah.
Thanks. Perfect.
That helps so much. Walk it off. You'll be fine. So, it's interesting. So employee engagement, at least from an organizational level, has to do with how the organization engages their employees in career development, in connections to the community, in growing their role within the organization, those kind of things. It has to do with employee engagement. Also has to do with training and development, and not only initial training into the organization, like, here's how you do X, Y, or Z, but also training them around company culture, and also, again, training them for growth. So it's all those things wrapped into one lump sum is kind of employee engagement, just FYI. At least on what the book says, right? But it also a lot of it has to do with culture, right? And company culture, and being engaged with the company or with the organization. And so I think that speaks a lot to what Jessica was saying, is that connection, and trying to be connected to the organization, right? So, and I think, nonprofit versus for-profit, there's probably some differences there, because nonprofits are often more mission-driven, where your previous work was not always such. So maybe, I think there's sometimes difference because of the ethos that kind of started the organization to begin with, right? So
yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, great. So be honest, you're not on work time right now. Do you believe employee engagement is high at your organization? Why or why not?
I mean, I will say, I definitely believe it's high. OCOM provides an 8-hour block for community volunteer. Like, you get 8 hours of paid time to go and volunteer for someone. And that's, we've got our mission statement kind of posted at different places. It's something that people are consistently referring to, I've noticed. And again, coming from a from a for-profit, very corporate kind of background into this, the difference in staff morale and engagement is very noticeable.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, I also think it's engagement is pretty high. I mean, I think that we could do better, but especially coming from like when I worked at Portland State, I felt like even though it's like I just felt like there was so much, it was so large that you felt like you kind of just had to stay in your lane, or at least for me, because I was pretty low level. I was an admin assistant, like very much so just like stay in your lane and kind of do, you know, what you're told to do or what your job description is, where I feel like just the size and how OCOM is set up, there's a lot more like you feel like personally like responsible or invested in how the school is doing as a whole, and you feel like you're not just there to like clock in, do your tasks and clock out, as much as like I feel like you're like more engaged in the overall mission of the college. Yeah, and I do think that there's ways that we could do better. Like I think that even though we're so small, we still are siloed in a lot of ways that I think is unnecessary. I also think that there's a lot of people that are like really overworked, and then there's some people that aren't as utilized, and I think that we could do a lot better at like sharing, kind of like asking for help and sharing in job responsibilities. And I think that, yeah, I think like being able to involve more people and do a better job at like, you know, just, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but like farm out responsibilities. What am I, like delegating. Yeah.
Job shadow.
Yeah, like I think that there's, I think that people could do, especially like higher up, could do better at delegating responsibilities to kind of like spread the butter and take and make some like people feel more engaged in the college as a whole.
Right. I don't disagree, and that does lead to the next question. But on that first, you know, I am curious, you know, our size, right? We are a very small organization in the grand scheme of things, right? And I'm curious, do you think that our size and our resources limits our ability to fully do, like to really do employee engagement in a very systematic and real way? Or do you think that's a factor at all? Or do you think we use that as a reason that we don't do it? Or I'm curious what you think how our size and resources play into our either engagement or lack thereof in the areas you just mentioned.
My internet like crapped out for a second, but I heard the last bit of it. But essentially like how our size and our limited resources play into all of that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think our size is like our benefit of it. And in some ways, I think our limited resources is so in some ways can be a benefit. And like, oh, I'm going to pull you into this project or that project. But I think the level of stress that people are under, like when they're just like, makes it so you can't do those kind of like higher level, more engaging kind of things, because you're just like focused on like getting your everything done for that day or like that week or the term or, you know, whatnot. Like you're racing the clock. And so,
right. Yeah. Taking time to actually get someone else trained to do something on top of, you know, your other work.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense. Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that OCOM has kind of a unique situation, even aside from the limited resources and our size, in that we have a lot of momentum with how things are done and sort of the culture that's built up that may or may not serve us anymore. But that's you know the way things are, and we've definitely got some growing pains coming up with everything happening. But again, to tie into what Jessica was saying, I do agree that our limited resources it can help as much as hinder, because it kind of forces us to be a lot more adaptable and a lot more creative. We don't have the luxury of saying, we're like, oh, well, we'll just, hire someone new. It's like, well, we can't. So how can we get this done with what we have?
Yeah.
We have a very MacGyver approach to pretty much everything right now.
Well, we did before that too.
Yeah.
Well, I think, what's the line? Something about necessity creates...
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Invention, thank you. Yeah, exactly. And I say about the engagement part, even though I have my frustrations with OCOM sometimes, and maybe just because I've been there as long as I have, but I've been there as long as I have because they allowed me to take the role I had and to grow it in really significant ways. And then it just kind of allowed me then to move up from there, because I was able to, even though it was often self-directed, not necessarily directed from above, but my own, just me being me, but they allowed me space to do that, right? They allowed me, the role I had at first, when I first was hired, was not the role I had when I got promoted, and that role was not the role it was when I got promoted again. And so, I think OCOM, no matter what, even if it's not always systematic, they do allow individuals who want to be engaged and to grow to do so, in really real ways. I mean, that's, I think, one of the big kudos I give to OCOM and engagement is that they have a culture of allowing that to happen, so just to give my own 2 cents on that. Okay, I think I have 2 more questions. Yes. What role do organizational leaders play in increasing employee engagement? Either how do they do it now, or how do you think they should be doing it? However you want to answer that, it's up to you.
I mean, I'll take this one first since we've kind of been switching off.
Good.
To kind of tie into what you were saying previously, I mean, I started in the bookstore as, I don't remember what the title was now, but basically an assistant bookstore person.
Right.
And I kind of built up from there, and the bookstore is its own thing, kind of separate, but I got hired into this new position, got sort of a lateral transfer, or whatever the term is. But again, even in this point, to say what you're saying is that I've built out what I've been doing. I have a joined job, and when we needed to switch to online, I didn't have nearly as much pushback as I had grown accustomed to in previous workplaces when I said, well, I can do this and make a tool for us. The response was essentially, great. Do you need anything else? And I had no idea what to do with that. Like, do I need anything else? Is that a trick question? Like, I don't think so.
You got a hallelujah, please do it.
Yeah. It's refreshing. And yeah, it definitely ties into the whole employee engagement thing, because then it was, I had to take ownership. I was the one who put this forward, and now I'm I get all of the emails for anything that goes wrong with it, but that's what I signed up for.
Being so on top of it.
Exactly. And I'm okay with that. Like,
it's your own fault for being so good. Jessica, are you still there?
I think she froze.
No.
Speaking of Zoom, huh?
Right. We'll give it just a second. There she is.
She's coming back.
Yeah.
Nope. Stupid internet. Am I back?
You're back.
You're back.
Okay. Remind me of the question again.
Right. 1 sec. I forgot myself. Oh yeah. What role do organizational leaders play in increasing employee engagement?
Yeah, I think just a lot of it is like allowing the space and sort of I like.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No. Jessica.
Dang.
Well, let me ask a follow-up while we wait for her.
Am I back again?
You're back again.
I have to switch to my phone. I don't
Do
know.
you want to
what's
turn
happening.
off your camera? You can just turn off your. That seems to help, folks. You can turn off your camera.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
I think a lot of it is how leaders respond to things, like what Nick said, like responding to people when they bring things up. Like, do you say like yes, or how could that work, or that's a good idea? And I think the leaders that we have at OCOM that are like, I think of like Beth Howlett or someone that's like very much like, great, how do we do this, or could we do this, or like she's always looking for ways that people can improve things. And I think that makes me feel like really engaged when she responds like that, and doesn't respond with wait, but maybe we couldn't, or like responds with the positive. And yeah, I mean, I just think if they're feeling engaged, and if they're feeling like excited about their job or what they're doing, then that just like bleeds into everyone that's under them. Like, they don't have to do anything specific. Like, it's just that energy is contagious. And like, we've all worked for burnt out supervisors, and we know how hard that can be compared to when we have supervisors who are more engaged in stuff like that. So yeah.
I can definitely understand that one. Interestingly, the other person I interviewed for this said something similar about Beth.
I mean,
she's kind of Superwoman though. Like, she's another level than even like I think you're like most people. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfair to compare people to her sometimes. It's not fair. But I agree. I mean, a lot of it I think does come from those, at a leadership level, because OCOM's not a flat organization. I mean, we're not super hierarchical. There's not a huge level of, mid-manager to president, but I mean, technically the president's only one person above me, so, or two, Martin and then her. So yeah. So, again, that's where I think the size also becomes a benefit, could be a benefit or a drawback depending, right? Because we're not so big, that if we have someone at a leadership level who is engaged, like Beth, like Sherry, it does help engagement all the way down, right? So, Nick, anything to add on leadership and engagement?
I mean, you both kind of hit on what I was going to say. I mean, again, we've been through a couple different presidents just since I've been working for OCOM. We had one person, then we had an interim who was a previous president who returned. And I mean, in the 4 years I've been here, we've had 3 presidents, now that I'm thinking about it. Deb, I can't remember his name.
Was Michael back for a little bit while you were here?
I don't remember.
Michael, probably, yeah, Michael, probably.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, just going through that and seeing I mean, all 3 of them were very focused. I mean, even though we kind of, dragged Mike back from retirement, even though he was, ostensibly retired and ready to kind of relax, he still was in almost
Bill.
every day.
Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Bill.
Please. Yes.
Sorry. Unrelated, but Bill.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just agreeing with you guys at this point. I don't really have anything new to add. Just it's refreshing to see that compared to previous places I've worked.
Right. He had been CFO, retired, and then got dragged back to temporary president, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, great. One last question. And again, be honest as much as you're willing to be. Does your own engagement fluctuate? Why or why not? That's why I said what I said.
Yeah, I think that my own engagement fluctuates with like my general kind of satisfaction with my job. And I think there's like and I think a lot of that too has to do with like the level of kind of busyness, I guess, is like sometimes like there's like this sweet spot where you want to feel like you have like purpose and you have like a lot to do during the day, but then there's like a point when it like dips into overwhelm where you're just like, I don't even fucking care anymore kind of thing. And then but then if you don't have enough to do, or you don't feel like included in things, or you don't feel like people are like asking you for help or doing anything, then you just feel like, I mean, this is more at previous jobs, like especially when I was at Portland State, like I didn't have enough to do and I didn't feel like really called upon to do more, or to like, or that I even had the space to do more. So I was just like, well, that's fine, I'll just be on Facebook or be on whatever, you know. And so or like if I stay up too late, like I'm not worried about being super tired at work the next day because I know that my like level of operation needs to only be at a 6 or something, you know. So it's like, I don't know, I feel like there's like a sweet spot in there that helps with my own engagement. And
Yeah, I mean, I think you exactly. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. And you know, the reason that I applied for the new position at OCOM was because I hit a point at the bookstore where there wasn't enough to do. You know, there's definitely busy times where, you know, there's plenty of stuff to keep you engaged, and it can be really refreshing, really, I don't know, rewarding, I guess. But at the same time, there would be times where, you know, I was literally, the only reason I was there is because we needed to have a body at the desk. That was it. And it's not the best feeling to think that like literally anyone could be in this chair.
You're a warm body.
I'm a warm body, exactly. And you know, what's interesting is talking about the overwhelm. There's kind of like, other than the sweet spot, there's the other issue of being able to do what you know that you need to do. Right now, with how everything is up in the air and no one has any answers or really knows what to expect, I have a whole stack of things that I know need to get done that I can't work with. Like I literally cannot start, because if I do, I could end up causing a whole host of issues down the line. So right now it's hurry up and wait. It's like, okay, well, as soon as we know what to do, I can get on it, but I just have to watch it. I feel like I'm a dog that's been told to, you know, sit and stay with a treat right there.
Interesting. That's an interesting analogy to share. But fair. I mean, it is. And you know, that's unfortunately the nature of the world that we are in right now. And, you know, ACOM taking forever to answer a question and all these things, right? I mean, for myself, just be honest, is because we're all so busy, though, it has felt, you know, being engaged in like a way that is about like growth or new skills or tasks, you know, often, at least for me, I feel completely engaged because there's just so much to do, right? I don't feel like I'm growing necessarily as much as I was in the last several years, you know, jobs at OCOM. But, you know, the every day feels so busy that maybe the word engage doesn't feel right at times, because for me, employee engagement is a positive thing, right? And just being so busy all the time, it's like, do I feel engaged, or I just feel like I'm keeping my head above water, right?
There's a difference between taking a drink from a cup and from a fire hose.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, so lately it has felt more just like, you know, trying to keep the head above water, not as necessarily engaged, but just keeping up. Mm-hmm. For myself, at least. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, probably both of you, feel that way at times, especially recently. I don't want to speak for you, but I would just assume most people are feeling that way at the moment, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also for me,
I think opportunity to to learn is also a big part of that, like you said, like, but you can't be at a place when you're like learning if you're just like racing. But although for me, probably because I'm not, you know, at quite as crazy busy as you guys, but just like doing some of the like switching to online has felt like that for me.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of it has felt like you know, like, oh gosh, just racing to like set up whatever. But some of it has, you know, like there's like when there's that
Oh,
We lost her. Oh, she's gone.
okay. All right. Well, I was about to call it anyways.
I mean, I had one last piece, and that was basically, you know, because you had originally asked, do we feel like our engagement wanes? And that's why I asked for the day off yesterday, because
Yeah.
last week I could feel myself where it was like, I'm running out of energy. I need to be able to take at least a little bit of time to kind of take a breath, and then I can come back.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, you're there.
You're back.
I'm back again.
Hey.
So yeah, he was just saying how like that day off he took was like, again, that trying to take a breath and come back a little bit more refreshed.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
Setting-
And I couldn't agree more. You know, Jessica, are you going to take a day off soon?
Yeah, I need to. Also, because I just realized how many vacation hours I have right now. I have so many.
Yeah. It's like, oh shit.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna take a long weekend here. Maybe I might even take like this Friday afternoon off, and then maybe the next Friday or something
Yeah.
after the town hall.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. You should. I was going to say is with the move to online learning, even though it's been stressful, I was saying to my husband recently that it's the first time in a while where I felt like I did learn something new at work, right? That I could use in other jobs at other places. You know, we talk about that size thing again. I think at least for me, because the next step in the rung for me, I don't have the education for, because you have to have a doctorate or you have to have an acupuncture degree, right? Or medical degree. And so for me, I think part of the not always feeling as engaged is, and again, just being honest, is that the next step will require me to jump a level, right? And so maybe that's part of why, and then that plus on top of just how busy we all are, I think it's like, well, my next step I can't do at the location we are in, at least, you know, most likely. And that's where the size issue comes in, right? In more of a negative sense in a certain respect, just because there's not as, once you get to a certain point, there's not as much growth available because you're hitting levels that you can't get to next, right? And that's just something, you know, in relation to engagement and size that can become challenging especially when you're a specialty institution, right? Where it's so niche in certain areas. Like being a dean of the program is not something I can do.
Yeah.
You know, even though that in higher ed, that would be a next logical, especially once I get my doctorate, right? But it's not the right kind of doctorate. So anyways, I'm just kind of wrapping up here. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.